Today's guest on the Instant Celebrity Maker hails from Bermuda. You know, he was in Atlanta, but Andrew McConnell is here today with us, and he's got a long explanation of his business. He's a vacation, rental, revenue, and pricing expert. So that is I had to practice that before I gave it out. So Andrew, please say hello to the listeners today and viewers.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, tell us about your business model, because I don't think I've heard of this. Rented.com, which is what, are you the CEO, the founder? Tell us about you and how you got into this business, because I find it quite interesting.
That's exactly right. Yes, I'm the founder and CEO of Rented.com. And what we do is pricing and revenue management for professional vacation rental management companies. So most people think of Airbnb or Vrbo as just one person doing it, but they're actually companies, tens of thousands of companies that do it, like Hilton and Marriott do for hotels. But the difference is these companies are very small. They typically are just 10 to maybe a couple hundred properties in one very specific town. And so as a result, they don't have the same resources big hotels do. They don't have data scientists on team. They don't have engineers and software developers on their team. And so what we do is we build out best-in-class technology, data science, data models to help them make the most from their properties.
And is that in real time, Andrew?
It is. So we're pulling billions and billions of data points, and based on historical pricing, but mostly based on current demand. So what we look at is for every single property, what are the most comparable properties based on location, amenities, size to yours, and what's happening in the market. Are they booking more quickly than usual, less quickly, are prices shifting, and making sure that yours always has the right price for the right time to get that best guess possible to make as much as possible.
I'm going to write that down. The right price, because this is a key. I'm always looking for gems for my right price, right time, at the right time, because you're squeezing the lemon precisely, not randomly.
Correct. Because it really is, it's a complex science behind it, because what you have to do is whatever your customer is, right? Ours are vacation rental guests, but whoever your customer is, there's a specific point in time that they're coming through a specific channel. Maybe they're walking into your store, maybe they're visiting your website, maybe they're calling you, but it's getting that exact right client at the right time through that right channel and making sure there's the price and differentiation so that yours is the product, or in this case, vacation rental, they ultimately book and purchase.
Well, as a consumer who's traveled extensively over the world, 3.5 million miles I have in the air before the pandemic. Yeah, I'm a world traveler, truly. I know that I've been clicking on a flight at a particular price at a certain time, and if I didn't click to buy quickly enough, the price went up or down accordingly. That is Correct. No longer available. So that's a similar technology you're employing, isn't it?
That's exactly right. So the difference is with airlines and even with hotels, you have a much more commoditized inventory. So yes, there's a difference between first class and coach, but in reality, the time to get, the 10 a.m. flight, there are 100 seats that are effectively the same.
Right.
But depending on demand and how close or far you are from that date, they're not necessarily going to be treated the same in price. In vacation rentals, we always say it's more like we're pricing snowflakes, because even in the same condominium building, the properties could be furnished differently. There could be slightly different floor plans. You have different views depending on which side of the building you're in or how high those properties show up on Airbnb and other listing sites completely change. So you could have cookie cutter the same property, but they have different reviews and booking patterns. And so they're going to show up totally differently. Whereas when you search Expedia or Delta.com, they're not going to show you the price per each seat. They're just saying, hey, a coach seat is this, and that covers 100, 200 different seats. So it's vacation rentals, despite being less sophisticated in terms of the history of data collection and pricing and analytics that we've been doing in this industry is actually far more complex than airlines or hotels.
Got it. Well, how would your friends describe you? Let's just talk about that a little bit.
Hopefully they describe me as someone who is just incredibly curious and always seeking to learn more, and probably not just learn, but also share. So I do a lot of writing. A few years ago, I realized as much as I read and try to consume and learn, 3 or 4 books a week,
Wow.
It's a very, 199 books in 2020.
Wow. In what topic? I find that's interesting about you. I read about a book a week.
Okay.
Not 3 to 4. Man.
Yeah, it's a wildly variant. So what I finished the year last year with was the Last Lion, the really epic trilogy of biography of Winston Churchill.
Okay.
But then also a lot of fiction. I'm now I have a 5-year-old daughter. We started kicking off reading together the Wizard of Oz series, which I didn't realize until I bought it is actually 14 books. So just starting that with my daughter.
Wow.
Just finished, this weekend, I read Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, but then now I'm starting The Practicing Stoic. And so business books, philosophy books, history, fiction, it's kind of all mixed in.
Wow, good. I mean, that keeps the education. I mean, I think I have to up my game. I'm only a book a week. Gemini, that's something. I mean, we could talk further about that.
Well, and this is where I track it now. And my concern, I didn't track for years and years. And my concern was that the count would start to become the metric. And it's a vanity metric because it's what are you taking away from these? That's
Sure.
the far more important part. And that's where really trying to use my writing as a synthesis to not just make the consumption a selfish task, but to share back with others. What am I seeing across I have 50 something articles with Forbes, and the most recent's about me trying to meditate through a literal hurricane that's coming through and how it's impacting, and then pulling from some of the neuroscience, some of the Buddhist writing, some of the Stoicism, and tying that all together of, hey, what does this mean in our daily lives and building a business? How can it apply to you?
You've written articles for Forbes?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. I was going to ask you, what's your greatest accomplishment? That's got to be that's impressive. All right. Again, I've got to up my game. You're lighting a little fire under me, Andrew. I mean, I got a few years on you. And I got to get some articles into Forbes here, man.
Well, the articles, were the starting point. Then after a certain number, I said, I'm writing so much. Could I do a book? And so ended up getting knee surgery. So I wrote one book and then used that to get an agent. And the agent said, this is a fine book, but I think you can do a better book. And so then they made me write another book. And so we sold that book to a publisher. And so that'll come out June of 22. Sorry?
Which publisher?
They're called Ben Bella. So we put it out for auction and had 4 offers from Simon & Schuster and Wiley, Ben Bella, and one other I can't remember. And
I haven't heard of Ben Bella. I'm published with John Wiley. You'll see.
Yeah. So it's an imprint, Matt Holt Books with Ben Bella, and Matt ran Wiley for years. Yeah.
He was the one that handled my book with Wiley.
Right. And so yeah, I loved Matt. And so I decided to go, with his new smaller imprint over some of the bigger names because I just totally hit it off with Matt.
So he spun off from Wiley.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he has his own imprint with Ben Bella.
Wow. We have to chat post this interview then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask this. What do you wish you would have known when you started out?
This is a double-edged sword. I think there's one side that, especially with starting my first company, wish I had a better sense for just how long things would take.
Oh yeah.
But my concern is if I did, it would have been way easier to stay on the tried and true path instead of going and doing my own thing. And I'm so grateful in many ways for that ignorance, because I did the thing that maybe I wouldn't have if I had all the information and truly internalized it. And I think my life is definitely enriched as a result. So there's certain things I definitely learned. I'm like, man, this is very, very different. But if I had known it, I'm not sure I would have taken the same path in reality.
Okay. And you're obviously a successful, driven guy just based on this. I mean, because very few people ever publish one book, much less you're now doing more. And I mean, that's a great accomplishment, because I help people get books published as a different business, because most people don't understand the process, and I've been through it, self and publishing. But tell me something you have failed at. Business.
Yeah. So
it could be a girlfriend you didn't ask to the dance. You know,
this is a long list, but actually, one of my Forbes articles in the past year was learning to fail, was about failing. And this may seem like a small thing, but when we moved to Bermuda, they don't recognize any other driver's license. And you're not allowed to have a car or drive a car without a Bermuda's driver's license, and you have to live here for a certain amount of time, et cetera. So I failed my driving test the first time in Bermuda. Yeah, you know, I'm a 40-year-old man who's been driving more than half of my life, and they fail me the first time around. I'm so embarrassed, and how do I tell my daughter and all of this? And so that's not a how do you perceive it failure. I literally, there's a fail stamped on the piece of paper. Not many adults, once you're out of school, have that true opportunity to get the word fail thrown at you like that.
Well, I'm very curious about my next question, because not only is it my favorite because I'm a history buff, but you're so well read and you're a writer yourself. I'm eager to hear your response. If you could have coffee and or a drink or a latte, probably lattes didn't exist then, with any historical figure, who would you choose? The caveat is, Andrew, this person must be dead.
Okay.
Be with us.
Yeah, for me, and this is predicated on me being able to speak Latin fluently, which I don't actually, but to be able to actually converse and get anything out of this, I would really love to sit down with Marcus Aurelius, to have someone who literally at the time was the most powerful human on earth, right? The emperor of Rome. But at a time that Rome was kind of falling apart. It starts to disintegrate. It really starts to do so under his son. But who was, we know from his meditations, this incredibly reflective, introspective ruler that had to balance things he was really uncomfortable with. You can tell from his writings, he really didn't like the gladiatorial games and some of the things, but he felt as a ruler, I have to give bread and circuses to the people, but this doesn't align with my personal philosophy. But is there a greater good than my personal philosophy? And just really being able to dig into how he thought and weighed out all of that. He just seemed like a tremendously insightful individual.
Interesting. Okay. I've never had that answer before. A lot of Einstein, most say Jesus, but Marcus Aurelius is interesting, and some say Thomas Edison. Mine would differ from yours. Mine would have been Confucius. I would have had to have known Old Mandarin. But
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I just finally read the Analects this year.
Okay.
And so Confucius would be fascinating, or the Buddha, right? Like Siddhartha, and go through all that. So many people, yeah.
Yeah. So who's been your most important professional mentor, and he or she can be alive today?
It's hard. Yeah, that is really difficult for me in that I kind of collect them, like toys of literally every single conversation, right? It's going in and realizing your job is to find out what is so interesting about that person. What do they know that you don't know? And so I think there are a number of mentors I have that never realized they were a mentor, because they maybe never picked up on just how much I extracted and gained from them. But the reality is probably the most impactful for me has been someone I've never met, and that's Timothy Ferris, the 4-hour work week, 4-hour body, all of that. But just from his podcast, from his writing, from everything he's done, he's just dramatically changed my life. And then as a result, many lives that I touch because of the way I do things. And so I think in terms of pure impact, it's probably Tim Ferriss. Yeah.
Yeah. His book is so impactful because it triggers, oh my gosh, we want to only work 4 hours a week when he came out with that. It's not realistic. And nobody I know that's successful in my world works 4 hours. That's
right.
But the marketing message certainly hooked people to buy it.
Right.
He's brilliant at marketing. The guy is brilliant. I got to say, he's done a fantastic job.
Well, and honestly, the probably the even more impactful, he has the follow-up book was called The 4-Hour Body. Right. And it's this 900-page tome, but it's 30 and some of the stuff that he puts in there around diet and exercise changed my parents' lives. My dad's a cardiologist, and he said, basically what I learned in med school about nutrition was wrong. And he lost 65 pounds in a year and started running marathons and half marathons and put thousands of his patients on this kind of program from Tim Ferriss, and everybody's seen amazing results. So that's what I'm saying. His impact wasn't just, oh, here's how to outsource and get more efficient in your day. It's just when you talk about someone who's constantly trying to learn and grow and really sharing that journey to help others do the same, I really can't think of anyone better and more impactful.
Okay. And if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what piece of advice would you have told a young Andrew who reads 3 to 4 books a week?
I'm not sure now this would have been great advice to 18-year-old me, but I would say be more present. It honestly was something I wasn't great at until my daughter was born, who's 5. So, I'm 36. I always was very much looking to the future. And I think that's how I accomplished a lot too of, okay, where do I want to go to this school? And what do I want to achieve with this? And, et cetera. But I think I missed out on a lot as a result. And I'm not certain I couldn't have achieved just as much by enjoying right now, as opposed to saying, hey, let me just not even think about right now. Let me only think about the future. And I think I missed out on a lot, especially at that stage of my life.
Well, I would imagine you're extremely goal-oriented. You've got a lot of energy. You're only 40, and there's a big world of accomplishment to come up for you. And what's your plan to achieve your goals? Let's just say over the next 2 years. I don't like to ask 5 years, 10 years. That's so far out. The world is changing so rapidly today. It's too old of a question to ask in current times. So I'm just going to say a year or two.
Yeah. So maybe I'm not as capable as other people, but I really like to narrow down what I'm working on, what I care about to one big thing at any given moment. Hey, this is the one thing I'm getting done right now. And so say it's writing the book. Well, if I want to publish a book in 2022, well, what do? You go write it. And so, that's mine. It's a very tactical answer of get where you want to be. So, the book is written, that text is finalized. If it's, I came to Bermuda and wanted to start a company here. And right. So I found a business partner and we started a company, right? That just got incorporated last week. And so it's just, but it took forever because all the legal paperwork and processing and everything in Bermuda. But it's less, I guess, for me about kind of putting these plans down on paper other than, hey, what are the steps necessary to get this done? And then stop thinking about it and start doing it. And so my plan is to do the work necessary to hit those goals.
And when life throws you a challenge, how do you overcome it?
This is something I'm definitely trying to work on. But my first thing is to pause, is to stop, right? Viktor Frankl said between stimulus and response, there's a space. And kind of that's how your life is defined, is what you're doing with that space. And so I think my default, kind of back to my answer to the previous one of action, my default is to action. Right. I can be very reactive. Yeah, I can be very reactive when that challenge hits because my first thing is I need to do something quickly. And that's really literally this morning was journaling on this, of being better at just stopping for a second and understanding what it is. What is the challenge? Why is it a challenge? You kind of go through the 5 whys, dig into it before acting. And so I think if you asked me a year ago, the answer would have been, I just start tackling it immediately, take it head on. Now it'd be, take some time and really think through the objectives before you start doing.
Okay. And if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would you write about? Given that you're a writer, sorry, this is a standardized question I ask, is most of my guests have not written books or they've only written one, because most people, if you know this statistic, write one book and never write a second. I've written several. I didn't want to be part of that statistic.
Right.
You've already, I know you've got 2, but if you had to write a new one, because you're probably already thinking about this, what would you write about?
Yeah. So the new book, I think I'd like to write would be getting actually back into fiction. That was the first book I ever wrote was a novel, and it would be a modern day Iliad plus Odyssey, but told from the perspective of Telemachus. So a coming of age story of someone going on that same Odyssean journey.
So historical fiction.
But not, no. It would be modern, right? So the Iliad would be either Afghanistan or Iraq. That would be the war he would be in. So just tell that tale as a coming of age tale for the son of Odysseus to be going through.
Okay, awesome. And what's one question you wish I'd asked you, and how would you have answered? Why did I write the book that I did write?
And so that's the book is Get Out of My Head. And it really got back to when COVID was kind of hitting and realizing how much of our time and our lives was spent back to that reactivity of handing over our mind to everything that was happening around us, handing over our mind to something someone said or didn't say or did or didn't do, and realizing the only thing we own or ever will own is our own mind. And to make the most of it, we have to act like owners. We have to decide, are we going to rent space in this? If so, for how much? What value are we seeking to get out of it? And so the book, that was really the genesis of it, and pulling from Stoicism as well as contemporary stories from the guy who ran the SEALs to the founder of DocuSign to Dr. Martin Luther King's daughter, and how they put these principles into practice and how you can as well.
There's one question I was going to ask, because I don't think you have time for this. I would imagine you don't spend a lot of time watching Netflix or TV.
I do not spend a lot of time watching TV. That is true.
Read that much and accomplish so much. So is that one of your keys to success?
I think honestly, that if you had to go back, I haven't owned a TV since I left my parents' house. And technically we now own a TV, but we put it in when we left the States so that the renter, because you had to have a TV to have a renter in your house. But other than that, no, we've just never owned a TV. And so I think not even having the option, kind of getting back to Odysseus, knowing when to tie yourself to the mast so you don't follow the siren. The television would be the siren that it would be very easy to go watch and start putting my time in. But if I do that, I'm not going to be reading something. I'm not going to be writing. I'm not going to be fully present with my daughter or my wife. And so really just taking that option off the table.
Okay. And how do you promote your personal and company brand? What do you do in order to market yourself? Now, I know you write articles for Forbes. That was interesting. You're an author, but that's a slower process. But what do you do to aggressively get out in the marketplace?
I'm not sure I even very aggressively do. I mean, I certainly utilize LinkedIn a lot for professional brand as my personal brand. Yeah. And so I do a lot of write-ups for my specific industry in vacation rentals and post that, because that's less specific to Forbes. So that will get posted on our blog or on LinkedIn. And then I just try to kind of share what's happening. I put as much time and attention into as I should, especially as someone who's trying to get people to buy his book at some point. So probably need to put time there.
Okay. And how can I support you?
Yeah, I would love, rented.com. Anybody who has vacation rentals or works with a professional manager who may manage your vacation rentals, if you want to make more from those properties, then please come our way. We'd love to help you that
I do have some
at Rented.
people refer you that own a lot of Airbnbs and so forth.
Nice.
Really
Yeah.
good, a good piece for you. So how's your experience been on the show today?
It's been great. I really, you're very welcoming and ask great questions. So I've really enjoyed it.
Okay. And what is your final word, Andrew?
My final word, something that I kept above my desk and continue to do. It's other people aren't the problem. It's just this one quote I got from this Zen Buddhism book.
I got to write that down because I've been taking notes. If you see my head go down during this, that's a compliment because it means I'm taking notes. So say that again.
Other people aren't the problem.
Other people aren't the problem. And
it's just so dead simple, but it in kind of every aspect of your life, you can just start unpacking it and come back to it. So that's where I just leave it.
Okay, well, great. And you've been a great guest, and I look forward to being able to refer people to you and have you on as a guest again in the future. Thank you.
I would love that. Thank you.